Hello, my name is Naomi, and I'm going to be taking you through my self-advocacy workshop for Maya's Legacy. What's going to be included in the workshop? So we're going to talk about what self-advocacy is. Then I'm going to delve in deep to explain more about self-awareness and the importance of self-awareness, and how our own ingrained behaviours can block our self-advocacy. And this is where self-awareness is so important. So I'm going to end by telling you how you can build upon that self-awareness so that you can advocate for yourself. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, first of all. My name's Naomi Buffery. I am a certified emotional health coach, and there's a couple of things I do. I am a maternal mental health coach, which is what I support mums that have been through postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety, and I get them to a point where they're recovered. And I also work with anyone really that's had an issue with dependence on alcohol, and I help people to recover from that and become alcohol free. So I call myself an alcohol freedom coach as well. And they tie in together because sometimes what we can do is we can use alcohol to manage our mental health, manage anxiety. I certainly did. So those are the two things that I work on. I've been doing this for 3 years. I've worked with lots and lots of women to help with their mental health and their emotional health. I've run peer support groups. So before I even began this, I used to run a peer support group for mums that had postnatal depression. And before that, and alongside that, I used to volunteer for the NHS as well, doing something called the Maternity Voices Partnership. And I was the mental health lead for that. So looking to make changes within the NHS to support mums with their mental health. I'm really passionate about supporting mums in particular, but anyone really with their mental and their emotional health to live a life that you're supposed to lead, to reach your potential and be, happy from deep within your soul. That's what lights me up. So that's a bit about me. Okay, so diving straight in, what is self-advocacy? So I looked this up. I looked it up in the dictionary for a dictionary definition. And the description was the action of representing oneself or one's views or interests. And basically what that means is standing up for yourself, isn't it? Standing up for yourself, your rights, and for those you love as well, and doing what's right for you. And I saw this as fitting into 3 different areas. So it's asking what you want and what you need, being able to communicate your needs, and ultimately being in control of your own life. And this doesn't always come easily to people, and it certainly didn't come easily to me. And this is where, because I wasn't self-aware, I didn't have self-awareness, and I had lots of unhelpful, ingrained behaviours that blocked me from being my own best friend and from advocating for myself. So it wasn't just for me. It wasn't just for me. I wasn't able to advocate for my son either. And this is when I realised that it was a problem for me, was when I wasn't able to advocate for my son. I was finding it very, very difficult and very anxiety inducing to advocate for my son. And that was the catalyst of change for me. Because I was completely unaware of why I felt like this. And this is why self-awareness is an absolute game changer. So there's a few examples of where I wasn't able to advocate for myself. So when I was giving birth, I felt very, very out of control, and I felt like I was being pushed and pulled and pushed and pulled, and I didn't stand up for myself. I gave away my power to all the people around me. And because of that, because I felt so out of control, I felt traumatized after my birth. So that was a real issue. So not being able to advocate for myself in that situation created birth trauma for me. I developed postnatal depression, and I developed postnatal anxiety and postnatal OCD. And I think that birth trauma was at the heart of all of that. And then when my son was a bit older and I was taking him out to soft play or play dates, I found it really hard. I found it so incredibly difficult if somebody else's child upset him. I felt difficult to interact in that situation because of these unhelpful ingrained behaviours I had, which I'm going to talk about in more detail. I found it really difficult to deal with those sort of situations where I would have to almost feel like I would have to confront another parent because of something that their child had done to upset my child. And then when he went to nursery, there was an occasion when he was really upset. He didn't want to go in, and he was clinging to me. And instinctively, I knew something had happened that had upset him and was making him feel anxious about going to nursery. But I didn't know how to stand up for myself and therefore stand up for my son. And in hindsight, I would have dealt with it very differently if I hadn't have had these ingrained behaviours that were holding me back. And the final thing is it's created resentment in my relationship because I haven't been able to assert my own needs. I haven't been able to, and I can now, but I haven't been able to express what I needed in a relationship. So I was expecting him to provide it without me telling him what I needed. And because he didn't, I blamed him and resentment grew. So those are 3 quite big examples of how my inability to advocate for myself created some huge problems. So I got birth trauma, relationship problems, and ultimately, if I hadn't done anything about it, I could have damaged my relationship with my son as well. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to talk you through 5 key areas that I think are really important for self-awareness. And this is the self-awareness is what will give you the ability to advocate for yourself. So something that's really, really important is our thought processes. Literally, our thoughts create our reality. So master your thoughts and master your universe. We have all sorts of unhelpful ways of thinking, loads, but they're called cognitive distortions. One of the biggies for being able to advocate for yourself, and one of the common pitfalls that you may come across, is when we make assumptions. Now or jump to conclusions. Now this is really unhelpful, and this is all about learning how to express your needs. Now, like I said in the previous slide about becoming resentful with my partner, was because I wasn't communicating with him. I was making assumptions. And so he would say something to me. I'll put it into context. He would say something like, "Oh, I feel really tired." And I would assume that he was saying he was tired because he was implying that I was lazy. I would jump to that conclusion. And that would create this invisible barrier between us. It would create friction because I had made a massive assumption about what he had said. Now, this can be a real, if we're not aware of this, making assumptions about what we think other people are thinking can be really, really unhelpful. Because we can never make assumptions about what other people think. So you always need to look at things with a clear and open mind. Because you cannot advocate for yourself based on an assumption of what you think somebody else is thinking. This is what I've learned with my communication with my partner, is you need to spell things out, lay it on the line, say exactly what you mean. Because in your head, if you're making assumptions, in your head, you think that the situation is hopeless, and it's not actually based on a fact, it's based on an assumption that you've made. So how we think has a huge impact on how we feel and how we view the world. So I would say to you something super important. If you think if you have an opinion about what somebody else thinks, is that actually the truth or is that an assumption? That's a really important lesson that I've learned. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about in terms of self-awareness is about our core beliefs. Is what you believe about yourself definitely true, or have you just thought it for so long that you don't even question it? Each individual has hundreds, if not thousands, of beliefs about ourselves, other people, the world around us. And those beliefs, especially the negative beliefs we have, can often be a distorted version of reality. So I will explain it as an example again. I used to have a belief that I was no good at talking. So I would, for most of my career, I had a job where I didn't have to talk. I could sit quietly in the corner, and I quietly longed to do something rewarding, something that gave me purpose. I was doing admin jobs where I didn't have to talk. And I told myself, well, you can't pursue that career because you can't talk. So I was miserable. It's actually a load of rubbish. But I believed that for so long. Somebody probably told me it once and I internalized it. Or something happened. Something would have happened where I felt maybe embarrassed for stumbling over my words or something. So I internalized that and told myself I couldn't talk, so I couldn't pursue that career. So that was, and I believed that with every inch of my heart. I believed that, and it's not true. It's not, it simply isn't true. So we have these beliefs, all these loads of beliefs. So you can see how your beliefs about yourself and the world around you may affect your ability to advocate for yourself. So my beliefs, going back to my birth trauma, I had a belief that I couldn't articulate myself particularly well. So that would have contributed to my birth trauma. I had a belief that I wasn't confident. So that would have contributed to me not being able to advocate for myself in labour. I had a belief that all of the medical professionals around me were better than me. And so that would have stopped me from advocating for myself in that situation, because I assumed that they were all knew better than me about my own body. So those beliefs are really, really important, for learning how to advocate for yourself. So have a think, what do I believe about myself that might hold me back from advocating for myself? And is it actually the truth? Is it a cold, hard fact, or is it something I'm telling myself? And quite often we have these beliefs to protect ourselves. So me saying to myself, oh, I don't know how to talk, was protecting myself from potentially failing. I had no idea that was, that's self-awareness, but I had no idea that that's why I believed that until I went on a journey of self-awareness. So I would challenge you to start questioning absolutely everything you believe to be true, because this is the exciting thing. You get to choose what you believe about yourself. I think that's pretty flipping awesome. We get to choose what we believe about ourselves. So you need to choose some beliefs that will support you to advocate for yourself. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is social anxiety. Are you so concerned about being judged or seen in a bad light that you've forgotten how to put yourself first? Now, this will be a huge one. Fear of judgment. And when we have social anxiety is often, people think social anxiety is a fear of being sociable. But actually, underneath it all, it is a fear of judgment, or a fear of being rejected, or a fear of being portrayed in a negative light. So what we do is we adapt. We adapt our behaviour to get other people to like us. That is what social anxiety is. So can you see how this would affect your ability to advocate for yourself? And that certainly affected my ability to advocate for myself when my son was struggling at nursery, because I really, really wanted to help him. I really wanted to help him and get to the bottom of it. But I had such bad social anxiety that I didn't know how to even enter into any form of confrontation, because the fear of being judged or rejected or evaluated negatively was so strong. So strong. And that potentially, social anxiety could potentially have ruined my relationship with my son. And that's why when we were on play dates, I found it so hard to say to another mother, your child has upset my son, please can you take them away? Because I had a desperate need for other people to like me. And I almost lost my sense of self from social anxiety, because I was never truly being myself. I was adapting my behaviour to fit, and I mirrored other people's behaviour to get them to like me and accept me. Because inwardly, I didn't accept myself. And that's what the root of it is. Because inwardly, I didn't accept myself. I didn't like myself. So I would seek out external validation. So if you can relate to this, and you have a fear of judgment and you have a fear of being rejected, you need to take it inwards, because what we're doing is we're working outwards. We're using our external world to make us feel good about ourselves, but we don't have control of that. And it can get us into sticky situations where we feel like we're letting our kids down, or we feel like we're letting someone we love down. And it needs to, validation needs to come from within. It needs to come from you. So, it's something that you build up gradually. How I got over my social anxiety was, one, going back to beliefs, it was a bunch of beliefs I had about myself. I had a belief that, nobody liked me, I was boring, people were going to reject me, I was weird, I was unlovable. It was all a bunch of beliefs I had. That's what social anxiety is. It's a bunch of beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves. So it was accepting that I could believe something else, and it was working on building up my self-esteem on a daily basis. And that's the next thing I'm going to be going on to, because social anxiety and self-esteem work hand in hand. So if you have high self-esteem, you will have low social anxiety. But if you've got low self-esteem, you will have high social anxiety. Because when we don't feel good on the inside, we view, that's how we view the world. We think that other people think the same about us, and we desperately try and get other people to like us so that we can feel some sort of love, some sort of validation. And that's the next thing I'm going to be talking about. So boost your self-esteem, get rid of your social anxiety. So when you love yourself unconditionally, absolutely everything just falls into place. So self-esteem affects everything. It affects everything. And what some people think, self-esteem is basically how you value yourself, your sense of self-worth, how much you value yourself. And what a lot of people think is that self-esteem is something that's set in stone and it's not something that you can change. But it is. It really is, because my self-esteem was rock bottom. And I've built it up to a healthy level, but it's something I work on every day. It's a muscle. And this is what we don't know. And nobody teaches us this, is self-esteem is a muscle that you need to be building all the time. And in society, especially in this country, we don't like people who love themselves. We ridicule them. We say things like, oh, look at him, he's got a big head. But actually, loving yourself is really, really important. And if you love yourself, you will naturally know how to advocate for yourself, because you will value yourself enough to want to be able to do it. So that was another problem I had, again with my son, was I didn't value myself enough to stand up for myself in those situations. Again, when I was in labour, I didn't value myself enough. I didn't feel worthy. So if you take anything from this workshop, this is the most important thing. Because if you work on your self-esteem, it will improve your social anxiety. It will help change those beliefs you have about yourself, and it will help with the thoughts, your negative thoughts that you have. So what can you do to boost your self-esteem? So one thing I do every single day is I will evaluate the day and look at how hard I've tried. How hard I've tried that day. And I look for 3 examples of how hard I've tried. Because this is how we inadvertently damage our own self-esteem, is we will set ourselves standards. We will say, I need to be this good. I need to be this, I need to be perfect. That's, this is if you want to find a sign of low self-esteem, wanting things to be perfect and not allowing yourself to make mistakes is a sign of low self-esteem. So we will say to ourselves, I have to be perfect. I can't make mistakes, which is really unrealistic, because you're human. And that's a human condition. We make mistakes. We learn from making mistakes. So then when you make a mistake, you don't reach those perfection levels, you tell yourself off and you criticize yourself and you're mean to yourself and you berate yourself. And when you do that, you damage your self-esteem. So by accepting that you're not perfect, accepting that you make mistakes, and looking out every day for how hard you tried. So even if you did make a mistake, how hard did you try to rectify that mistake? That's what you focus on. You don't focus on the mistake. You focus on how you dealt with the mistake. That's what you focus on. So looking for 3 examples of how hard you've tried every day can really boost your self-esteem. The next thing is just recognizing when you're criticizing yourself and stop doing it. Because we have these automatic negative thoughts about ourselves. Just stop. Just keep an eye out for it and stop. And this is how you build the self-esteem muscle. Let go of perfection. Allow yourself to make mistakes. See mistakes as a good thing. Recognize how hard you try every day and stop criticizing yourself. Do those things for a month and I guarantee you will feel better about yourself. And when you have a good sense of self-worth, you will know instinctively how to stand up for yourself. And the last thing I want to talk about is emotional control. And does it feel like you're in control of your emotions? Or does it feel like 1 minute you're happy and next you're in the depths of doom? And this is where empowerment comes from, self-empowerment. We have something called an emotional control spectrum. And on one end, your emotions are controlled by things that happen outside of you. How your kids behave, how someone else behaves towards you, the news, something your partner says. You're controlled. Your emotions are controlled by things outside of you. But on the other end, you are in complete control of your emotions. You are not affected, or things happening outside of you have very little effect on your emotions because you are in control. And if you are really affected, if your emotions are really affected by outside sources, that is going to affect you sticking up for yourself and you advocating for yourself, because you won't want to do it because it will affect your emotions. So it links in with social anxiety, doesn't it? Where how other people respond to you can make you feel happy or sad. You don't have control of that. You have absolutely no control of that. So you need to take it back to what you can control. And this is an awesome tip for anyone. If you feel yourself having an emotional response to something that you don't have control of, think to yourself, how can I take back control? You don't have control of what anyone else says or does, but you do have control of your own reactions, your own thoughts, and your own feelings. And that is how you take back control. And it takes practice. It really takes practice. It took me a long time. It took me a lot of practice to stop being affected by other people's reactions to me. But it's so powerful. And that is how you take back control. So that's my training on self-advocacy. I hope you found it helpful. Self-awareness is super, super important for being able to advocate for yourself. Going deep and understanding yourself on a deep level is really important for self-advocacy. Just to go over those few points on a high level. Managing your thoughts. So stop making assumptions about what other people think and feel. Huge. Understanding your core beliefs, what you believe about yourself and other people and the world around you. Is it true? Is it actually true, or is it a lie? Is it a lie you tell yourself to protect yourself for some reason? Social anxiety. Are you allowing your fear of judgment to control you? Self-esteem. Create some healthy daily habits to boost your self-esteem, and everything else will fall into place. And emotional control. When you feel an emotional response to something, how can you take back control how can you take back control and bring it back to yourself and bring that emotional response back down to calm. I'm Naomi Buffery. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.